Hey, what's up? This is Ron from StepWise Media again, and we're going to continue along in our tutorial series for beginning Android application development. And this is where I kind of deviate a little bit. Most build environments will tell you to install Eclipse at this point. We're going to be looking at a version of Eclipse called Moto Dev Studio. And real simple, you're just going to go to Google and in your search window type in Moto Dev Studio. And that will take you to the Motorola developers website. Now, you have to remember that Moto Dev Studio is a version of Eclipse, but it does come with the Android developer tools pre-installed, so it'll save you a step in having to download the ADT. You do have to have an account with Motorola, and it's as simple as signing up with an email address. I already have an account with Moto Dev as a Motorola developer, so you're going to log into your Moto Dev account or create an account. And as I had mentioned, Eclipse is an open source integrated development environment for Java and for various other platforms. The Moto Dev Studio is basically Motorola's version of Eclipse that includes the ADT pre-installed. The Android developer tools are going to become pre-installed in this. And I'm downloading the 32-bit version, even though I'm running a 64-bit version of Windows. I'm downloading the 32-bit version. And as I'd mentioned in a previous tutorial, the Android SDKs are natively 32-bit. And it decreases a little bit of bugginess by keeping everything 32-bit. So I'm going to go to my downloads and I'm going to drag that Moto Dev Studio right over to my desktop. And we're going to run this as an administrator. We're going to right-click, Run as Administrator. And the other thing that varies a little bit differently between this and a native Eclipse installation is that Moto Dev Studio will target an actual path to install. Now with Eclipse, once you unpack the installation files, you can typically run them from anywhere. Moto Dev Studio will actually target an installation directory. And the installer is loading up. And here we are at the splash screen, and we're just going to keep all the defaults and click Next, and make sure you accept all the license agreements. Make sure that you read every bit of that carefully. And as I had mentioned, it's going to target an installation directory. We're using the 32-bit version, so it's going to target my program files x86. And it's going to create the directory for me. And we're still going to keep all the defaults and just click Next. And it will ask me if I want menu or desktop shortcuts. I'd like a nice little shortcut, so I'm going to click that box, and I'm going to leave this for all users. And click Next again. And this is going to install in the directory that Moto Dev Studio pretty much targeted from the beginning. And that's in Motorola Mobility in my program files. Now, if you're used to using Eclipse, or if you have not installed Eclipse in the past, we're going to be looking at Eclipse in a future tutorial, but this is Moto Dev Studio is pretty much a version of Eclipse that comes pre-installed with ADT, the Android developers tools. And because I have an Android device, I became real excited about Moto Dev Studio. It also includes quite a few various snippets that you can use as you're coding certain things. And this will take a few moments to install, and it looks like it's finished now, so we're going to close that wizard. We're just going to hit next. And the installation is complete. And we're just going to delete this real quick. We don't need the installer anymore, so we're going to put that in the recycle bin and just clear everything out. And we're going to launch up Moto Dev Studio. And if you're used to using Eclipse, the splash screen, even though this is the Moto Dev Studio splash screen, it looks very similarly like the Eclipse splash. And it's also going to ask me where I want to keep my workspace. And we're just going to accept the defaults. This is the workspace, the environment, well, the path directory where you're going to save all your files and programs that you're working on. So we're going to keep that as a default. And do not ask again. And this is going to load us into Moto Dev Studio. And just with an Eclipse installation, it's going to have a welcome screen. And we're just going to go right to the workbench from our welcome screen. And we're also going to have to tell Moto Dev Studio where we installed our Android SDKs. Now, if you look at the target location, it's looking in a directory that we didn't previously install our SDKs, so we're going to have to tell Moto Dev Studio where we installed our SDKs, which was under C, Program Files, Android. So we're just going to navigate to that directory real quick. And there's our C, Program Files x86. Android and Android SDK, and that will basically tell Moto Dev Studio where our SDKs are located. And I'm just going to opt out of this real quick. We're not going to send our usage statistics right now. And if you're used to Eclipse or not used to Eclipse, this is going to look very familiar to you or not familiar to you. But we're basically going to close out a lot of these windows. We'll close out the Moto Dev splash window there and some of these other things on the right-hand side. But you can always go back to those windows by going into Views and Perspectives. But you'll notice that the ADT tools are already installed. So my AVD Manager, my SDK Manager, my shortcuts to launching a new Android project or creating a new Android XML file. And that basically bypasses having to install the ADT through Eclipse. There are also a ton of useful snippets. Once you get involved in programming, you can pretty much grab a snippet or a code snippet to help you as you start to code for specific things such as intents or geolocation. And if we go to our new project windows, we can see that we already have our links to starting a new Android project. And that should take you through installing Moto Dev Studio.